Hey yo, what's up? We out here in the woods, and I got another video for you, another little lesson. This has to do with how you can really level up your improvising soloing game, especially when it comes to blues and blues-based music. The cool thing about the blues, which by the way spawned a lot of different other American music styles, like funk, jazz, rock, and even kind of hip-hop and like R&B. All that shit really first stems from blues music, which blues music, I guess, I don't know, it has a lot of different influences from stuff like kind of like European and like American folk music and West African music, stuff like that. And what I'm going to show you right now is how to switch between the major and the minor scales while you're soloing. The cool thing about the blues is that, like, unless it's like a minor blues, in which the chord changes are more kind of like soul R&B, but besides that, the blues is kind of like an in-between major and minor scales. Like, its tonality is not quite major, not quite minor. And so that's why when you solo on a blues jam, then you can switch between the major and minor scales. And it can sound really cool if done correctly, and shows more tools rather than just playing in one scale, which can get a little bit repetitive. But it's just good to have more tools at your disposal. So I'm gonna kind of talk about the 12 bar blues, which is a basic musical form of blues music, which it has 12 measures. Let's be in the key of, and it has 3 chords. So let's say we're in the key of B. So the first chord, the 1, is gonna be a B major. The 4 is gonna be an E major. And the 5 is going to be an F sharp major. Very standard chord changes and a lot of styles of music. But in the blues, usually it's not just a regular major chord. It's usually going to be what's called a dominant 7th chord, which means, so there's that characteristic note there. Basically means that it's the major chord plus the flat 7th. And if we think back, what mode has a major tonality but a flat 7? That's the mixolydian. Remember mixolydian? Also, the 4 and the 5 chords will also use a 7th chord, usually. They can also use, like, 7. They can also use a 9th chord, which is just extending the 7th chord. Rather than there simply being 1, 3, 5, 7, it's 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 9. So it sounds like, I really like it. It sounds like this. So for the 12 bar blues, there's a couple of different ways to play it, but a very common way is that it's played. So when I say a bar, I'm referring to like a musical measure, as in 4 beats. So for the first measure, first 4 beats, we'll play the 1 chord. And then the second measure, you can stick to the 1 chord, but what's very common and what I prefer is what's called the quick change, where on the second measure, you switch to the 4 chord for 1 measure. So it goes like, and then back to the 1 for 2 measures. And now we're on measure 5, where we would switch to the 4 chord, play that for 2 measures. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and back to the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now play the 5 chord for 1 measure. 2, 3, 4, and then the 4 chord. 1, 2, 3. Back to the 1. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, so that was 11 bars right there. And then, so for the 12th bar, we're gonna do what's called the turnaround. The 5 chord has very strong tension, and the 5 chord really wants to resolve into the 1. The 5 resolving to the 1 is what's called a perfect cadence in music theory, because it's kind of the most natural resolution to the 1. It just really is begging to go back to the 1. So basically, on measure 12, bar 12, you play the 5 chord, the turnaround, which brings you back to the beginning. All right, so that was 5. That was 12 bars right there. So when you're on the 1 chord, let's say you're soloing and it's the 1 chord, I can play minor pentatonic. I can play minor pentatonic, and that sounds pretty cool. Especially if you add the blues note in, or the flat 5. Hey, yo, you know what else you can do? You can play a major scale. You can play, so I was just playing B pentatonic minor on the 1 chord, B major 7, or I can play B pentatonic major. Yeah, pentatonic major and minor, there's 5 different shapes for pentatonic scale. Major and minor have the same shapes but a different starting note. So if I want to start on the low E string and play a B minor pentatonic, I would use this form. But if I wanted to play a pentatonic B major, I would use this form. So I would start with my second finger on the low E. Yeah. So you can like switch between the majors and the minor pentatonic. The major pentatonic works best when you're playing on the 1 chord. You can do the major. And then when you go to the 4 chord, you want to switch. It's best to switch to the minor. Obviously, you can do the major pentatonic chord. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, you can play major pentatonic while you're on the 4 chord. The thing is, the major pentatonic of B, of our root note, it has this major third. It has the D sharp. And so the reason why this kind of can be a problem to play that on the 4 chord, you see the 4 chord E, it has a E7, it has a D in it. So if you play the B major pentatonic while you're on the 4 chord, then you're kind of gonna have like those two notes are gonna clash, because the chord has a D in it, but the B major pentatonic has a D sharp in it. So that's why I usually prefer playing the minor pentatonic when I get to the 4 chord. But obviously you could play whatever you want. Like if you got the musicality and stuff, then you can make any note that's not on the scale sound good if you do it tastefully. But we're just doing the basics here right now. So we're on the 1 chord. I can start in my major pentatonic. Oh, we're on the 4 now. I'm gonna switch to the minor. back to the 1. I'm gonna switch back to the major. Same with the 5. I'm gonna go to the minor pentatonic. And then back to the 4, minor also. Oh, back to the 1. That's the major 3rd. Back to the beginning. So, yeah, man. On the 1 chord, you could play minor or major pentatonic. On the 4 and the 5, I'd say start out just doing the minor pentatonic. And you know how before I was saying that the blues is kind of halfway between major and minor? So I'm gonna show you, check this out. So if I'm playing, we're still in the key of B, I'm playing B minor pentatonic, I can do what's called a quarter tone bend. So this is the root note, that's the 1. I go to the 3, and as we know, the 3 is what gives a scale its major or minor tonality, either a minor 3rd or the major 3rd. So on the minor pentatonic, this is a minor 3rd, but I can do what's called like a quarter tone bend, where I bend that shit up. I bend the third note of the scale, I bend it slightly up. So it almost reaches this. It almost reaches the major 3rd, but not quite. It's halfway in between minor and major. You hear that little bend? All right. Yeah, what else can you, there's a lot of different things you can do. Like, you can change your scale that you're playing depending on the chord you're on, as I kind of showed you, but there's even more to it than that. Like, so we're on the B. I can play minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, or I can also play mixolydian, like what I showed you last time. This is where I'll admit, it gets a little bit tricky. Because if you really want to be able to switch between all these scales, you have to be good at connecting all the shapes that I showed you in the last video. Like, I know how I showed you this scale shape, and I was like, that corresponds with the mixolydian mode. Which is true if you're starting the root note on the E string. But if your root note is on a different string, it's gonna be a different shape. For example, B right here. If B is right here, if I want to play in the mixolydian mode, I'm gonna have to find a different shape. But also, you can just like connect it. You can think of, oh, what's the next shape? Because remember how they all connect to each other? So we have that quote-unquote mixolydian shape right here. And I'm like, oh, I want to play higher up. I want to shift up. So I have to think. I'm like, okay, so there was that shape. What's the shape that goes right after it? I'll be honest, I'm trying to figure this out myself right now. Oh, there we go. See, look, you just play around for a second, and then you find the shape. Hey, there we go. Look at that. So you were just gonna play around with it. You know, I'm right here. Fuck. I'm right here. I'm like, yo, I want to shift down. So let me think. What's the scale shape that goes before the one that I'm on right now? Oh yeah, it's that one. So yeah, get good at connecting them, guys. Also, this is useful for helping you find out where you are and find out what scale shape you should be playing. It's important to know your intervals between each string. Like, it's important to know that this shape here is how you get a major third. You should know the major thirds between each string. Like, so that's a major third between the E and the A string. The next two strings, it's the same shape of a major third. The next string, it's also the same shape of the major third. But because of the tuning of the guitar, between the G and the B string, the major third shape is different. They're on the same fret. That's a major third. And then between the B and the E string, the major third shape is the same as the first shape that I showed you. Basically, they're one fret apart. Also, when you're on the 4 chord, the thing about this 4 chord, you can also play Mixolydian for this. So, you know, the 4 in this case is E, so I can go play E Mixolydian. And you know what? The thing about the Mixolydian mode on the difference between Mixolydian of the 1 chord and of the 4 chord, it's only one note in actuality, and that's the third. The third. So in B Mixolydian, there's a D sharp. In E Mixolydian, there is a D, not a D sharp. So it's kind of the same notes, but you can switch the mode that you're playing in to correspond with the chord. Yeah, this is kind of something you're gonna really have to spend a lot of time playing around with if you want to get good at, like, oh, I'm on this string, I have the E note, I'm on the A string, and I'm like, what shape should I use? And this is where the knowing your intervals thing comes in handy. Because I'm like, okay, so I know E Mixolydian has a major third in it. I know the major third is here. So what shape might that be? Oh yeah, it's that shape. I want to shift. What's the next shape? Oh yeah, it's that shape. And then for the 5, I can also play the 5 chord, so F sharp Mixolydian. But it's best to only play that on the 5 chord, because this has this other note that is not in the other two modes, that is not in B Mixolydian or E Mixolydian, and that is the A sharp, because that's a half step away from the root note, A sharp to B, and usually in the blues we always use this dominant chord, which has the flat 7, which is a whole step away from the root note. But if you're in the 5 chord, you can play that natural 7. Oh, or in the 4, so I'm gonna switch back to the Mixolydian for the 4 chord. Oh, back to the 1. Thank you. Any questions? Let me know. I'll try and answer. Have a good day.